Good morning and Freilich and Chanukah. Welcome everybody to Mystical Teachings from the Tanya. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you from Chabad Zecher Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We welcome Tony from Costa Rica. Greetings, Mindy from Alberta. Shalom. Diane from London. And TJ is with us from Australia, where it's late at night. Cindy in Florida. Boker Tov. And John, North Carolina. Shalom. Elaine is with us from Georgia. Freilich Chanukah. And Eugenia from Calgary. Art in Michigan, Boker Tov. Fremad from Plano, Texas, good morning. And Eleanor. A lockdown. So you can learn a lot of Torah, that means, huh? Eleanor, remind me where you are. Okay. Carol in Canada. Okay. Another Canadian, fellow Canadian. Where in Canada, Carol? Tim, Chag Sameach to you in Texas. And Crystal, Shalom. Tassels to your garment means tzitzis. On the fringes of your garment, these are tzitzis. Linda, good morning together with Denise, Freilich Chanukah, Balint from Debrecen, Hungary. Greetings. Chuba from Alberta. Wow, we have a lot of Albertans here. Amazing. Carol, Thornhill, Ontario. Okay, wonderful. Lena, Danette, welcome. Julie, Boker Tov. Crystal, and Danita's from Philly, welcome. Simona, good morning. Dennis from Tennessee. Robert from Boston. Rick from Crystal Lake, Illinois, good morning. Aryeh, Boker Tov. And Eleanor, the Netherlands. Okay, Netherlands is a lockdown. Okay, should go with great success. And Fred Boker Tov. Mark from Santa Rosa, Fred from Miami Beach, Pedro from New Jersey. And Yochanan from Jerusalem. All right, beautiful. Okay, folks. A very central, fundamental class today. I mean, really every day is a fundamental class. What makes the person, what makes the man? Clothing make the man. Clothes make the man, as the saying goes. The garment makes the person. Well, we're going to learn today that, you think about it. How important are my garments compared to me? Obviously, I'm more important than the garments. The garments are there for me. However, we're going to learn today that the garments that refer to thought, speech, and action, expression of the soul, as opposed to the soul itself, which is the intelligence and the emotions of the soul. The thought, speech, and action are actually greater than the love and awe of the soul. How do we understand that? What does that mean exactly? So it's very counterintuitive. We think that the soul is for sure greater, and its love of God is greater. So let's explain. The soul, as it comes into the body, even though it's a part of God, as we learned in chapter 2, but when it comes into the body, it's a created being. Created being means that it has a sense of independent separateness from God. And as a result, it is not bound up in one with God, as it is in the body. If it were bound up in one with God, it wouldn't need anything. All you need to do is gaze the navel. Gaze your navel, right? All you need to do is gaze into your soul. And you have the oneness of God that's from within. But we don't have that. Again, why? Because the soul, even though it is one with God, but as it comes into the body, it becomes a created being. It's still godly, but it is, in fact, has a separateness. And therefore, even the love that it experiences, yesh misha oyev, it is a yesh, it is a someone that loves God. Just in that statement, there's the someone that's loving God, right? That itself indicates a separateness. It's not now. There's a unity, there's a love, so there's a bond, right? But it's not a perfect whole oneness. Not a perfect whole oneness. The Torah, as the Zohar explains, and God are entirely one, though. Since the Torah is the wisdom and the will of God, and He and His will, He and His wisdom are one, in a perfect oneness. He's the knower of knowledge. So it's totally bound up and one with God. In other words, when you look at Torah, you don't say, oh, God, there's God, and then there's, His Torah. No. Torah is God's. It's His divine will. It's His divine wisdom. It's one with Him. So, therefore, thinking words of Torah, expressing words of Torah, fulfilling the command of Torah, whatever mitzvah that there's a command in action, is infinitely greater than the love that the soul experiences for itself. The love of the godly soul that it experiences when, it is much greater. So right now we're thinking words of Torah, we're focused, comprehending, and the only way you can comprehend is we use your mind, right? So Rachel, yes, you make a good comment to refine our life through Torah mitzvahs, through thought, speech, and action, absolutely. But it's not just that it's refining us, it's connecting us to the essence of God. And that's how that's the nuance of the explanation over here, as opposed to, you could say the light of God is now being imbued in my soul and is helping to it's much deeper, more profound than that. It is attaching me to the essence of God. Okay, but then there's a question. I'm going to make sure that we got that. Let that sink in. Right now we're learning Torah, using our thoughts to understand, to comprehend. That's a garment of expression. And therefore, because we're comprehending, we are more bound up with God than we would be in the love of our soul. And that's just in your thoughts. When you say the words of prayer, the words of Torah, and when you do the action of a mitzvah, bound up and totally one with God. Now, is that clear? Eleanor, does it mean a Jew less of a man when he wears garments or not? Is his actions that make him a better man, not his garments? Well, garments is a metaphor for your thought, speech, and action that is bound up through your thoughts of words of Torah, through your thought, speech of words of Torah and prayer, and through your actions of doing mitzvahs, then you're truly bound up in one with God. As opposed to, again, the very soul itself, without its garments, meaning the love of the soul, that the love of the soul feels and has, you're not truly bound up in a perfect oneness with God. That's what we're explaining, right? Again, because the soul has a certain independence, even if in its love of God, being that it's now found in a body. But the Torah and the mitzvahs don't have any independence of God. Their whole identity, their whole being, their everything of it is nothing else but that it's bound up in one with God, perfect unity. Again, the will and the wisdom, which is the will of the mitzvahs, the wisdom of Torah, are a perfect oneness with God, even as they are down here, which we need now to explain. So the question now comes, as a result of this, how could it be said that we can understand Torah with our thoughts, and without understanding, then you don't, you're not connected to God's wisdom and his will, when his wisdom is like God himself. We said it's bound up in one with God. Well, God is infinite, beyond our limited comprehension. So then how is it that we're capable of comprehending Torah? So another fascinating idea that is fundamental, and that is as follows. If you're to search for God with your own mind, you can't find him. If you're to try to understand the ways of God, you will never be able to comprehend that. Because God is infinite, we're finite. But yet what God did was he took his Torah and his infinite wisdom, and something only that God can do, he contracted it, not made it lesser, but kind of took the infinite and put it in now into a finite contraption, box, whatever term you want to use, into a finite understanding. In other words, God in his great humility, that's where you can find his greatness. His greatness is, he's infinite, and his humility will find his greatness. Where's that? That he squeezed an infinite wisdom, his divine wisdom, Torah, and now put it into finite words, finite letters of the 5 books of Moses, 24 books of Tanakh, the oral Torah, the Midrash, the Talmud, Tanya, right? And the like. In other words, he contracts upon it and gives us the very same as it was on high, an infinite, something beyond our comprehension. But God in his humility brought it down in a way that we can now have access to his infinite wisdom as it's compounded, contracted into a finite understanding of a ox gores a cow, and this is the law, as we understand, as we learn over here. That we can now access with our human minds, finite minds, the infinite wisdom of God. Now, only God can do that. Now, a metaphor to bring that idea a little more clearly is not the way I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you, what are you getting from me? A ray of my understanding. Are you getting the core essence of it? Am I contracting and taking whatever I have this much and bringing it like this in a way that now it's something accessible to you? No, not at all. I'm giving you a mere ray and glimmer of my intelligence. Because that's the human condition. That's all you can give, right? That's why my mind, it's much brighter, clearer. That's why I've tried to bring it out and this angle, and then I'll bring it out in another angle. Why? Because whatever words I'm using is a mere glimmer, an array of the way I have it in understanding in my head. So I need to constantly engage and bring more words to bring that understanding. So that's not a good metaphor. The metaphor the Alter Rebbe uses is water on top of the mountain as it comes down to the bottom of the mountain. Same water. Didn't change. I mean, in the metaphor, right? It's the same thing. The difference is it's on top or the bottom. It's the same thing, God's wisdom, on top, on high. Yes, it's infinite beyond our comprehension, but God brought it down to the bottom of the mountain, brought it down into this world to me and you in his humility that he brought it down in a contracted manner that now we have access to it in words, that now we can comprehend ideas that we can understand rationally, and we can wrap our minds around it and get it. And get it. And what are we getting? God himself. And this was Anechi. I'm the Lord your God in the Ten Commandments. What does it mean? I. The word Anechi is an acronym from I have put my very soul, God says, my very being, my very core and essence, in writing. The writing of the Torah. You have me. Not that you have the ray of me, the light of me, God says, as I'm giving you, what I'm giving you, right? Even though I'm giving you the Torah itself, but in my expression of it, of me, you're getting a ray and a light. Of the Torah, you're getting the essence of the divine teachings. It's powerful. So therefore, Torah comes and descends. As the water comes down the mountain, the Torah comes and descends, and now it expresses itself in material terms. As I mentioned, commandments, that tassels, tzitzis, have to be done and put and wrapped and tied in a certain way, as Mindy is asking. Right? And one way, not another way, because that's how it came down. What's the big deal? That God is infinite in his wisdom? Well, he contracted and brought it down into material, physical terms, into the limited manner, in order that we can have our mind to wrap around it, to think it, speak it, and fulfill it, and do it. And we are connected through that to the essence of God himself. And that's what we say in the blessing over the Torah. Shenatan lanu es Torah. He gave us his Torah. Or Shenatan lanu et Torato. He gave us his Torah. He didn't give us something of his Torah. He didn't give us a ray, a glimmer of it. No, he gave it himself in it. The essence of it. And that's what we say, that he commanded and sanctified us in his mitzvahs. It's his. So now that it underwent this great descent in the sense, not in losing something, but it came down into a material world, divine wisdom and divine will, that every human thought is able to grasp, and every speech and action is able to connect to the divine will and wisdom as it's clothed in self in my thought, speech, and action by thinking the words of Torah and comprehending them, saying the words of Torah and prayer, and doing the actions of all of the 613 mitzvahs, as we explain. Now it's clearer that the 10 faculties of the soul, right, the 10 powers of the soul now are able to be clothed with every aspect of my soul. 613 components of the soul are called organs, right, from head to foot, that I'm now excited. So, powerful ideas. I know now that my soul's love of God is not as great as that when my soul expresses that love in thoughts of Torah, words of Torah and prayer, and 613 mitzvahs, or 248 positive commandments of action, that through that I'm bound up and one with God. I know now that the Torah, even though it is the divine wisdom and the divine will of God, meaning it's bound up in one with God, therefore it's infinite, I know now that in God's great humility, he brought it down here. Not losing anything, as water, the top of the mountain is the same water at the bottom of the mountain, doesn't lose anything. It's the same essential essence of divine wisdom and will, but now it's expressed in a material world in order that I could use my mind to access and grasp the divine wisdom and be connected to the essence of God. And through my speech of words of Torah and words of prayer, and through my actions of donning tefillin, putting on the tzitzis, the tassels on the corners of the garment, that I am bound up and connected, not to a ray of light of God, but to the essence of God. Is that clear? Powerful. All right. See if I see any questions here that I... Yep. Julie, thank you for sharing. Very true. Yochanan asks a very good question. The Tanya speaks about Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, the three components of the soul that are integrated from within, but doesn't speak really about Chai Yechida, which is the encompassing aspects of the soul. As we know, there's 5 components of the soul. Why not? So, excellent question. And the basic idea is that the nefesh refers to the behavior of the soul. The ruach is the emotions of the soul, and the neshama is the intelligence of the soul. Those are things that are within us, within our natural grasp, and that's what Tanya is teaching us, and how we can integrate that and develop that and connect that with God. The parts that are beyond us, Chayin Yechida, are more the essence of this, referring to the essence, in particular Yechida. It's more about the sacrifice that is transcendent and about connection that is beyond the intelligence and the emotions that we develop and the understanding that we get. But that's just in a basic idea. Excellent question. Truth is, the Rebbe develops more the Yechida. More on that another time. Okay. All right, folks. Great. Wishing everybody a Freilich and Chanukah. good luck, a wonderful week, and to be continued. Please, sharing is caring, so make sure you share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. Anybody else? I've reached out to many people. Thank you, James. Anybody who's asking for a donation, you need to go to your local institutions, and going online over here is not the place for anything like that. And that being said, appreciate that everybody just respects everybody else's space over here. That would be important. And if a person is not capable, well, I guess we'll just have to ignore what needs to be ignored. All right, folks. Please, if I don't have your email to let you know of other things that are going to be happening, private message me with your email. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day.